Alright, so I got cut off with the last video on acute and chronic exposure. So real quick, acute is a sudden and severe exposure to some sort of toxin. So an example would be carbon monoxide poisoning. That can happen in your house or even through your car if your car is in an enclosed area. Chronic exposure is something that happens over many days, months, or years. An example could be lead or mercury poisoning or even cancer. So some types of harmful chemicals. Knowing these definitions of what a mutagen, teratogen, and carcinogen are is very important. So make sure you star this. Mutagens are going to be chemicals or forms of radiation that can change your DNA. So this is not safe at all. Teratogens, those are going to be things like arsenic, DDT, lead, mercury. Those are going to be harmful and can create birth defects, while carcinogens are going to be a type of radiation that can cause cancer, and they can cause tumors. So things like PCBs, arsenic, radon, chromium, those are all things that can be harmful chemicals to humans. Again, these three concepts are important to know. And then effects of chemicals on biological systems. Important to know that they affect our immune system, especially arsenic, methylmercury, and dioxins. Those are going to attack your immune system. Neurotoxins are going to attack things like your brain, your spinal cord, and examples would be PCBs, mercury, lead, arsenic. Those are important to know. And endocrine disruptors, again, important to know. These are going to be hormones or the chemical messengers. They're going to turn on and off the body systems that control reproduction, growth, learning, and behavior. So things like DDT, PCBs, Atrazine, mercury, those are going to be important to know for the test. So suppressed immune system, neurotoxins, and endocrine mimickers or disruptors. The endocrine system, this is what is being affected by the endocrine mimickers and disruptors. They are going to affect your hypothalamus in your brain, your pituitary gland, your thyroid, your heart, your stomach, your pancreas, your intestines, and even female and male reproductive systems. So it's very important to know that toxins can affect your endocrine disruptor or mimickers and disruptors. So something big to know, endocrine disruptors, they can mimic a natural hormone, fooling the body to responding to the stimulus, so like growth hormone, or responding to inappropriate times like your insulin. They block the effects of a hormone from certain receptors, and then they directly stimulate or inhibit the endocrine system, causing overproduction or underproduction of hormones. So all these things can affect your body in a harmful way. So estrogen is a natural form in your body, while BPA affects estrogen and it mimics estrogen. So the composition is similar and your body gets fooled by the BPA. Same thing with DDT and again BPA, PCB. These are the chemical formulas and the structures that will affect your body system. So you're going to want to sketch these compounds of endocrine disruptors. So take a moment and kind of sketch out what a DDT looks like and so on. So something else that's very important to know is POPs and POCs. POPs is persistent organic pollutants, while the chemicals are POCs, persistent organic chemicals. These are going to be toxic, synthetic, so not natural organic chemicals used in industry and in agriculture that will be created unintentionally through chlorine combustion processes. So basically, they're harmful because they're soluble in lipids, so your fats, and they actually threat our level of predators. So things like humans have a big issue with POTS and pox. They're extremely resistant to biodegradation, and they can travel through atmosphere and also water. They're going to be a huge threat with wildlife, so it affects our wildlife in the Arctic and subarctic regions, and those can hurt our polar bears and our whales and other organisms that are higher up in the food chain. So here's some examples of different PCBs and their chemical formulas. And now we have PCBs. These are important to know too, the basic understanding that they use chemical stability transformers and added to paints and adhesives as stabilizers. And when humans get exposed to it, it's mainly... So lead is in your body, and when it gets in your body, it does not break down. So it constantly gets, as you add more lead into your body, it gets more and more and more. It can cause nervous system damage, also learning disabilities, birth defects, kidney failure, and behavioral problems. You'll see neurotoxin like of this magnitude in gasoline, also in waste and batteries. And there is a huge issue with Flint water crisis. In the Flint water crisis, there is lead in the water, and it's actually contaminated, and people can't drink the water. They have to import water. They can't bathe, they can't do dishes, they can't clean clothes because of the water issue going on. Mercury is another big one. It gets released into the environment through coal mining and also incineration waste, which we're going to talk about. And it can be inhaled or converted to methylmercury, where it can be ingested in your seafood and it will bioaccumulate. Remember, we talked about bioaccumulate before, so make sure you know that word. It can cause nervous system damage, it can cause birth defects and reproductive system damage. So it's really big. You really need to know about mercury. You also really need to know about methylmercury. This is going to be burn waste. It's emitted into the air through air transport, and it gets deposition and then runoff and then accumulated into the sediments, converts to methylmercury by bacteria. It can also bioaccumulate, and this is going to be a huge thing in sulfur, and it may migrate to other metal protein binding sites. So here is an example of the mercury cycle. You have mercury runoff through wastewater treatment, urban and industrial plants. It gets filtered down into the water system. It can also come from mining and agriculture and even precipitation that is affected by mercury. It'll get into our fish supply, and then it'll bioaccumulate into the organisms, and eventually it'll get into humans by multiple aspects. Minamata disease, this is going to be a neurological syndrome by severe mercury poisoning. This could be numbness in your hands and feet, damage to your hearing and speech, and sometimes it can cause coma or paralysis, and it can also affect fetuses. So Minamata City in Japan in 1956, this is a case study that you should know with mercury. It's caused by the release of methylmercury in industrial wastewater and from a chemical factory. It bioaccumulated in shellfish and fish in Minamata Bay, which would be eaten by the local population. So basically, the wastewater from the chemical factory had methylmercury in it, and shellfish was exposed to the methylmercury, and the people ate this shellfish, and then they got methylmercury into their body system. And then they had the issues of fetuses in the womb. They also had issues with numbness and damage, and it created a huge issue. Atrazine is a herbicide, and it can contaminate your drinking water and cause birth defects and even menstrual problems. Hexabromophenol is a flame retardant. and it can cause health issues like kidney disorders, nervous and immune systems will be affected. It is no longer used in developed nations, but it can still be used in developing nations. Bhopal Spill is something you do need to know. It's happened on December 2nd and 3rd, and it happened in India. Pesticide plant in Bhopal, India, it leaked methyl isocyanate gas and other chemicals, and it created an exposure to hundreds of thousands of people. It also killed thousands of people and injured hundreds of thousands. And that's it. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask me in class or email me.